We'll just give it another minute to let everybody arrive before we get started. All right, then. So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us here. I'm super excited that you're joining us for our Empowering Nonprofit webinar featuring Sage Intacct and our fixed fee approach. We have a few members of our team joining us today. First, I'll start with Amanda Thrasher. She is our amazing sales representative. So after the call, if you have questions or you want more details about the product, Amanda would be the person you would reach out to. And of course, we have Jim Scarff, who is our senior consultant for Sage Intacct. He has been a consultant for many years, and he has lots of depth of knowledge within nonprofits and Sage Intacct specifically. So the two of them will run the show today. I will monitor the chat. So if you have questions, you can pop them into the chat, and I will make sure to monitor that and make sure that Jim is able to answer all of the questions that you have. So I will just start off the show, and I will also monitor to make sure people get let in as we go. So I will pass it over to Amanda and to Jim. And Amanda, it's all yours.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. We're extremely excited to have y'all. Jim, if you want to go ahead and click over for me, and we'll just jump right into it. So, fun fact about Express Info, about a third of our business is nonprofit today. So we're confident in understanding that the nonprofit industry definitely has its own set of unique challenges that we are confident that we can help solve. So here's kind of what we've heard and what we've seen just in working in the industry. You guys have very complex fund accounting requirements, reporting burdens when it comes to grant management. We all know that there's extremely limited resources, and you guys are on a very strict and tight budget. And then we also know that you guys are have compliance around regulations. So Sage Intacct is actually the lead cloud financial management solution for nonprofits. Reason being is that it is a cloud-based platform, so easy access, high security, and it's extremely scalable to the growth of your organization. Fund accounting is extremely important to you guys, so Intacct also has robust fund accounting capabilities, grant management from budgeting to reporting, real-time visibility into financial performance. So with reporting, it's extremely important for nonprofits to have up-to-date reporting. So having real-time visibility, will help you guys out. And then automated processes to save time and reduce errors, right? Time is money. Time is very valuable to everybody. So the more we can automate, the less we have to fix later. And again, the solution is extremely scalable to grow with your organization. So whether you're just, a small nonprofit starting out, or you grow to something nationwide, Sage Intacct is there to support you. Jim will be showing some of these dashboards and talking more in detail about them, but here's just some ideas and examples of dashboards that you guys may be able to create or that we could help create for y'all within Sage Intacct. And from there, I will go ahead and turn it over to Jim.
Very good. Thank you, Amanda. All right, so we're going to look at key benefits in 3 areas today. The first one is real-time visibility. So as Amanda mentioned, Sage Intacct is a fully cloud-based solution. You do not have any installation or hardware to manage. Everything is in a common data center. All of Sage's customers throughout the world are always on the same version. You don't participate in any of the upgrade processes. That all happens 4 times a year. There's an update that's completely transparent to the user, so there's never any scheduled downtime. So no matter where you are, all you need is a device with a browser and an internet connection, and you can run Sage Intacct or view reports. So we're going to look at dashboards, which are a way to give everybody, all of your stakeholders, all the information they need in a single view at their fingertips. I'm going to show examples of different roles or different dashboards for different roles, such as CEO versus CFO versus controller. And we're going to look at some visualizations beyond just financial reports. So with that, let's jump over to the system. All right. So here is a dashboard. Dashboards have been the holy grail for many years, but they finally really come into their own the last few years, and Intacct is particularly good at dashboarding. So one of the things that separates Intacct from some of the other products is the ability to create really advanced reports for reporting by accountants without having to get IT staff involved. So everything on this dashboard was created somewhere else in the system, with the exception of these KPIs at the top, which are actually created on the dashboard. Everything else here is simply a collection of other reports or information that has been created elsewhere in the system. So I'm logged in as Carla, the controller, and you can see that I've got a number of role-based dashboards here, which we'll look at several of. I've got some KPIs here. I've got a basic financial report. I've got a list of purchasing transactions that I need to approve. I've got some various graphical representations of various information. We also have the ability to make these dashboards available to stakeholders outside of the accounting department. So there's a type of user that allows us to publish these dashboards in real time out to various stakeholders who otherwise would not have access to accounting system and would be looking to the accounting people to give them the information they need to accomplish their mission. So we mentioned various roles. So the controller would be one role. Again, these are all defined by you. So, for example, the CFO is going to have a very different set of interests from maybe my controller. And let's say maybe a grant manager is going to have yet another set of interests. So we give each stakeholder the information that they need to get to start their day and work through their day. I'm going to go back to controller dashboard here. And in the center, we have a basic statement of expenditures. One of the interesting things about these dashboards is that we can define up to 4 filters on these dashboards to allow each user to slice and dice information the way they need it. So at the moment, because I have no filter set other than the date, all of these dashboards are a consolidated view of all of my entities or funds. But if I want to start looking at specifics, for example, let's say I want to look at the Colson Initiative is one of my funds. So I'm going to filter to this fund and I'm going to click apply. And everything on this dashboard is going to refilter to this specific fund. Then I can go another level and select a department such as program and further filter. So now everything on this dashboard is filtered to a particular program and department combination. I'm going to go back to my full view. Okay. So all of these reports are drillable. I can also, any report that I'm interested in, I can pop out into full screen view. So here I get one more chance to set my filters, and I can get the screen in the report in full view. And from here, I can drill down to any items that interest me. For example, let's look at travel, lodging. Okay, so I'm up pretty good. I'm up 11%. What's going on here? So I'm at 118,000. So I can drill down, and my first level drill down will generate a general ledger that supports the 118,000. Then if I see an item that I'm particularly interested in, I can drill down on it. And the first level drill down shows me the journal entry and all of its coding. I can then see that this actually came from accounts payable. So I can drill down to any related accounts payable bills and see all of them here. So I can see this is a single invoice. It has an attachment. I can open the attachment. And again, I can make all of this available to any user in or outside of the accounting system. I can drill all the way down into the invoice, see all the particulars of it. I can see the paid status. This item is not paid. I can see the history of what's happened here. So this was approved by K Grace. All right, so I'll back out here. Oh, I really did it. I exited the accounting system. You got to watch what windows you close. So login is just this easy. Two-factor authentication is required. All right, so before I so rudely interrupted myself, let's look at a couple of other dashboards. So in addition to financial information, we can use metrics in statistical counts, such as my clients served, meals served. These are basically either integrated from other systems or entered or imported as one-sided journal entries. So we call these statistical accounts. So you can see on this particular program expense report, I am spreading out my program expenses by various programs. So each column here is a program. I've got a total of 4,009 clients served. We can see that number here. And we can see that what we're doing is we're taking our total expenses and we're dividing the number of clients served within each department into that amount to get a per client number. Okay, I'm using these various little shortcuts here to direct my demonstration, keep things organized. There's a number of ways to organize this. You can also create favorites within the system. So I have favorited various different windows rather than using the more broad menu system, make navigation simple. All right, and you can see here I've got some rather basic graphs, and they are, let me switch back to my controller dashboard. And you can see I've got some basic visualizations here, so I can pop this graph out. There is a pretty good graph builder in the system, so I can see how where my various expenses by programs went, and this happens to be organized in my Form 990 categories. As I hover over this, you can see it gives me a call out on the total. I can drill down further and it will give me, again, a general ledger to support that total. And like I did before, I can drill down to all of the various details in here, all the way down to the individual transactions. So this is a standard feature available at any level of the system. There is an additional visualization tool available. We call it the interactive visual explorer. And this takes a moment to render. All right, so this allows me to do some more advanced analysis and presentation. So let's pop this out again into a full screen mode. And so this gives me a view of how my grant or how my grant revenue over 2 different years was distributed among the various grants. So I can see that overall, my global research grant for 2020 was by far my largest, and it has basically disappeared in 2021. I can drill down one more level to get a quarterly view. So now for 2021, I can see the quarterly disbursement, and I can see that all of that grant revenue for global research happened in the first quarter. As I move to the end of the year, the Travis County grant is by far my largest revenue source. So you can see that I am essentially walking down the time scale. So one more click, and now I have a monthly presentation of the same data. So I can see that that this particular what is this, the Health Initiative Year 2 grant, it's pretty consistent, or I get some revenue throughout the year. So it's a very good visual representation of what's happening with my revenue, and a very powerful tool. All right, so let's go back to our next key benefit point, and that is to streamline fund and grant accounting. So Intacct uses the term multidimensional. Dimensional is a pretty standard term, which means a coding segment in older systems. Some of you may be on older systems that have a single account string where you might have set up your chart of accounts by having maybe a 4-digit account number, and then a 3-digit grant number, and then a 2-digit fund number, and so on and so forth. But every time you start a new grant or fund, you need to replicate a large section of your chart of accounts, which is both time consuming and messy. Some of you may have very long charts of accounts because it exponentially expands as you add various coding dimensions. Intacct's because there's been such a high adoption by nonprofits, we've got some very good grant functionality has been built into the system. Then scalability is a strong point that we mentioned earlier, that the data is in a common data center, so you are not restricted to your own server. Your data actually expands multiple servers or processors, so that as you perform more intensive tasks, the system can expand and consume more computing power. So reports, even very complex reports, tend to run very quickly. All right, so let's take a look at what multidimensional reporting does for me. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to start with just how we enter a journal entry. Okay, so this is pretty standard journal entry information. We've got things like descriptions and dates and such, but the key here is that the chart of accounts is just the account. Some of you may be used to that. Others, this may be a new concept. So there's no segmentation of this. Basically, grant award is grant award is grant award. I don't create multiple versions of this account for different grants. Then within Intacct, we've got up to 9 of these funding segments to deal with. Sometimes we want to keep things more streamlined, so we certainly don't have to try to use all these dimensions, and I can hide the ones that I don't need to use. I can also change the names of the various fields. So for example, out of the box, this dimension is actually first labeled location. I have relabeled this to fund. I have relabeled the AR customer to funding source. All right. Then if you have situations where you have multiple legal entities or a general fund that is paying expenses for other funds so that you need to maintain due to due from accounting, that is all fully automatic. So in this particular environment, um, the fund dimension is determining my legal entity. So as long as I am within the same fund, I don't have any due to due from entries. But let's say what I'm doing here is paying an expense on behalf of another fund. So if this was actually, I'm crediting cash on my general fund and taking the expense out to two of my other funds. So when I save this, I don't see it as I enter it. But if I go back to that transaction now, this is the same transaction. The system has added these due to, due from entries, which have been, elsewhere in the system, I have defined what the account relationships are between each of these funds or legal entities or businesses. So a debit in one fund and a credit in the other will give me a due to, due from entry anywhere in the system, receivables, payables, anywhere that you can do a transaction. This is strictly enforced to keep multiple entities or funds in balance. All right, so we talked about setting up individual dimensions. Let's look at setting up a grant. All right, so there's a lot of functionality here, but the key here is that I have given the grant an ID and a name, but then I've defined what other default dimension values typically apply to this grant. Now, this is optional. If a grant can fund multiple departments, we do not have to do these defaults, but this makes data entry very easy and accurate. So if I go to enter an accounts payable bill, for example, and I pick a vendor like ABC, and ABC has got let's see, I will give this an invoice number. ABC's got a default for office supplies. It's an office supply company. Hopefully the person submitting the expense has given me the grant number. So 401B. So watch that when I select this grant, it fills in everything else for me. So all I need to do is enter the amount and an optional description. I can also drag and drop an attachment. You saw that I drilled down to attachments earlier and simply submit this item and for approval, and an AP bill is created just that easy. All right, let's switch back to, I think I've got everything on item 2. Let's go back to our PowerPoint for a moment, and let's look at our third area of key benefits, and that is budgeting, reporting, and otherwise automating the grant process. So we are going to look at another dashboard that will give us a couple different dashboards that will give us views of real-time budget reporting. Then we've got a couple of really slick automation functionalities that are heavily used by nonprofits. And then audit trails, if time allowing, I'll give you a quick demonstration of how the system tracks everything. Oops. And then I need to navigate back to my system here. All right, so first of all, let's look at a dashboard which shows me my month-end grant position. So again, let's think in terms of we're doing our month-end activities. I'm sure many of you spend a lot of time in your month-end closing preparing reports for reimbursement or otherwise filling out grant or fund related reporting. So here is a dashboard that I threw together real quick that kind of gives me an overview of everything on this particular grant. So in this corner, I've got a high level actual revenue versus expenditures to compare to my budget and give me variances. Here, I've got a detailed general ledger of everything for this grant in this time frame. Then here, we try to create reports, and different funding sources have different requirements. One funding source's office supply definition may differ from another. So we try to create, at least for your major funding sources, individual reports that lay out subtotals the way you need them to submit your reports or enter into their portals. All right, again, I can use the same dashboard for any funding source that has the same requirements. So here you can see I have one line because I've told it that I want one funding source or one grant rather. This field is grant. But if I go to, for instance, 701, I believe is what I'm looking for, 170, all right? This happens to be a group of grants. So I can select either individual grants, which are what these numeric items are, or I can build any number or combination of combinations of grants based on a number of different criteria. So if I select 170 group, and then click apply to this. So now you can see it's showing me 3 different grants. And then I've got expenditures, actual, and budget. So also note that traditional reports such as this one, these rows are defined by account numbers. But in this particular case, my rows are defined by the grant dimension, and my columns are defined by account numbers, expenditures, budget, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this really can accelerate my month-end reporting. I'm sure many of you probably do large Excel dumps and create pivot tables to get the subtotals that you need for your reimbursements or other reporting. So this can be extremely efficient. All right. For those of you who deal with restriction releases, let's examine how we can automate that. So here I've got a dashboard. Let me zoom in here a little bit. I've got a dashboard that I've hard coded to a specific grant, but obviously I would want to have a filter on grant here. So at the top, we are demonstrating the restriction status of this $100,000 grant. And here's just a general ledger on that grant. So on 1/1 of 23, I received a $100,000 grant. So let's take a look at how that was recorded. So I can drill down on that and I can see that I debited cash and I credited grant income. This is grant 888 and it's temporarily restricted. Okay. So as I work through the month, then I am going to move here to the 30th and refilter this dashboard to pick up some more transactions. All right. So now I can see that I've got some accounts payable entries, APJ here. And let's drill down and look at one of these. Okay, so we can see that this bill was coded to grant 888. That's the key item here. Okay, so now I've spent $38,000 worth of this 100, but my status of my grant is still all temporarily restricted. So I need to run my restriction release for the month. This is an automated process where I can process either a single grant or a group of grants or all grants at once. So I've run that process on the last day of the month. So I'm going to inch forward one more day and apply this. And here we see that the system has generated this release entry. So now also the status of my funds is now I truly have 38,000 in unrestricted and 61 in that is still temporarily restricted. This is done through a single click process in a window that looks like this. All right, so basically this is kind of a complicated window, but I pick the date that I'm processing through and some definitions of what defines temporarily restricted versus restricted. But all I need to do at month end is simply set this date and click generate, and it will generate the process. And then I have a release log that will show me all of the different runs that I've done. So here I've only done one, but I should see each monthly run here. Then I can drill down in here and see what was generated. Okay, so here's the transaction that we looked at a moment ago. And if, for example, some expenses come in late or I otherwise want to redo this, all I need to do is go to this release log, click this, click delete, and it will purge that entry or entries. It could potentially be a very large entry, and I can run the process again. So it's extremely fast and extremely efficient in fund releasing, in restriction releasing, whether you're doing it monthly or annually. So many nonprofits I see simply pay their auditors to do that, which is a very expensive way to get that done. All right, another highly time-consuming process that some of you may do is allocations. Allocations typically are part of reimbursement grants or otherwise just for management reporting. So let's look at a couple of simplified examples of allocation. Okay, so let's look at our first example here. I'm going to break this out full screen. All right, let's take the example of I am allowed to allocate expenses based on or I'm going to allocate my fringe benefits based on the amount of salaries in each department. So this column is my salaries for 12/31/21. This column is my benefit before I ran the allocation, and this column is my benefits after the allocation. So note that I do have the ability with any type of allocation to run financial reports or general ledgers or any other reports either with the allocation or without the allocation. So if I have allocations that I need to do for either management or GAAP purposes, but they skew my operational reporting, I can have reports run with either with or without the allocations, or give the option at runtime to choose which I want. Okay, so here are my salaries for the month of 12/31. I'm booking them as I incur them into my various departments. But all of my fringe insurance, whatever, fringe benefits that I'm paying out are all coded to a shared services department. Then at month end, I run my allocation and it has spread these numbers by the relative dollar amount here. And like the restriction release, I can delete the allocation and rerun it at any time. All right, let's look at another example here. So in the first example, what I was doing was taking one set of balances and allocating them to a second set of balances based on a third set of balances. So I had the salaries were the source, other departments were the target, and the benefits were the basis. So here I'm using head count or any statistical account. So this could be square footage, this could be hours per month in a program, any statistical account. And you can see here that these are my dues and subscriptions expenses, which for whatever reason during the month, pre-allocation, as I pay dues and subscriptions, I charge them all into my product sales department. But at month end, I want to reallocate this based on headcount. So this headcount can change each month, obviously. So you can see here that here is my allocation and my post allocation amount. So some product sales stayed in this example. So I didn't allocate this to 0 because product sales has some headcount. So you can see with these percentages then that each department has its relative weight in the expense. All right. Oops. Let's see. So covered those two. Let's get back to, let's look at audit trails here. So this gives me a very good way to follow any transaction. If you're being audited or whatever, if I go and list a bill and maybe I go to view this bill, I can, every window has got a view audit trail. And when I select the view audit trail on this, I can see everything that's been done to this transaction. So someone else created it, then it was approved. There was a warning here that I'm within budget, which is good. So this could be a very long list of items depending on how many people have touched this transaction. We can also create reports against these audit trails to either put a report on a dashboard, or for example, something I did recently was send the controller an email every time someone changes the ACH process on or the ACH information on a vendor. We also have approval processes in both accounts payable and purchasing. There's a full purchase order system that's part of the base system. And let's see. All right, so that hits all of the basic topics. Again, the dashboards and reporting are the real power of why so many nonprofits choose Sage Intacct so that they can do grant level reporting. Final example of that would be, let's say, a lot of you may run general ledgers to get information, run general ledgers and spit that information out and then pivot it to do your reimbursement or grant reporting. So one of the things that we can do on the general ledger is I have got a memorized report here. Memorized general ledger. So let's look at this general ledger. So basically, when I run a general ledger, this is a busy window, but I have real flexibility to select date parameters as well as the range of accounts. I can filter by various dimensions. So in this particular case, I'm running a general ledger for just this particular report. You can also be in the system multiple times since this is a web application. So I'm going to duplicate this tab. Okay, so there's no licensing issues. You can open as many tabs as you need to. And now I'm going to go over and run a report. And I am going to run a financial report on expenditures. And I've also filtered this report. So when I run this report, it will ask me in real time what departments, what funds, or what grants. And again, if I leave these blank, it will be consolidated. So I'm going to run this for grant 401. And it gives me a financial report of my total expenditures. The way this report is designed is essentially I have a predefined set of accounts called an account group. So I have an account group called expenditures that defines the layout of this report. Well, once I have that, I can use that throughout the system. So I can, for example, on this general ledger, I can tell it that I want to see just 401. So if I run this, excuse me, I forgot a detail here. So I'm running this for 401, but rather than selecting a range of account numbers, I've told it I want all accounts, but this is that same account group that define that financial report. So essentially an account group is any line on a financial statement, basically. So I can filter my general ledger and get a report that matches the financial report or any line on the financial report. Again, I got 286, 300 and 286, 300. So the ability to parse reports by various dimensions gives me a great deal of flexibility and hopefully removes the need to spit data out to Excel. So the last thing that I can do with that report group is I mentioned that all of these areas on this dashboard were created elsewhere with the exception of these KPIs. And you can see the controller's got a few, but I believe the CFO's got quite a few more. So if I look at this total expenditures, let me just recreate this real quick. I just tell it that I want to add another. We don't let all of our users do this, but I want to add a performance card, which is what Intacct calls a KPI. And so I can call this expenses. And then here's that account group again. We just looked at using expenditures. So I'm going to select that same account group again. Then I get to pick the period, either the current month or current year. I've got a lot of different time comparisons. Then what do I want to compare it to? Do I want to compare it? Let's see, what did I do here? So this is a comparison to prior year already on the dashboard. So let's compare this to budget. So let's compare to budget. Then I got to tell which budget. I can have an unlimited number of different budgets. Let's compare this to my operating budget. And we're going to call an increase a bad thing. So I am going to do red. I've got some various I can do. And then I can simply save this and I will have a new KPI, which will show me my expenses. I am under budget, and that's a good thing. So all the information anybody needs to start and run their day all in one place. I'm going to hand it back to the sales folks to talk about our fixed fee approach to doing these implementations.
Before we jump to that, Jim, we do have one question. And it's about the Sage Intacct being built on the Salesforce platform. I don't believe it's built on the Salesforce platform. I believe it connects with Salesforce, but not the same platform. Is that correct?
That's an excellent question. So I do not believe I have it enabled in this environment. give me a moment to see here. Let me go to accounts payable and vendor. Let me edit one. No, it's not enabled here. So if you are a Salesforce user, so Intacct is not built on the Salesforce platform, but Intacct is one of Salesforce's 11 or 12 platinum global partners, which means they cooperate together very simply. So an optional no-cost feature is if I go into my subscriptions and I go to collaborate.
If you're trying to share, Jim, we don't see what you're doing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I quit sharing my screen. Let me go back here and let's go
Awesome. Thank you.
to, it's in here somewhere. Intacct Collaborate is actually Salesforce chatter. So for licensing purposes, they can't call it Salesforce chatter. They have to call it Sage Intacct Collaborate. But you'll see when I subscribe to this that it's going to tell me I've got all sorts of terms and conditions with Salesforce. So this enables the Salesforce collaboration. It is Salesforce. There are also a couple of different versions of integrations to Salesforce that will push customers or opportunities, invoices, and a variety of information bidirectionally between Salesforce and Intacct. It's a no-code integration. It does not require any additional users to be added in either system. When you have that integration turned on, your Salesforce users, for example, if you're integrating invoices, let's say contacts. So if you set up a contact in Salesforce and push it into Intacct and then invoice that customer, that invoice information will come back to Salesforce and your Salesforce users will be able to drill down into Intacct. Now they'll be read-only, but they can actually drill down to the source document without creating any additional users in Intacct.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that. So
Okay,
I think
great. Any
we're
other
ready for the next.
questions?
That was the only one I have. So we're ready for the next
Okay.
slide.
So just kind of, for example, just to show you real quick. So if I go back to the
Sure.
basically things that I can subscribe to, subscriptions, back to my subscription page. And if I search on Salesforce, actually it's called the Advanced CRM. So the Advanced CRM, you can see the the Salesforce logo here. Basically, you turn this on, and again, this is an additional fee. This is not part of the base system, so this does have some incremental cost. But again, you turn it on. It takes a little while for some things to get built in the background, and then you go through and you determine which direction all of the integrations work. Okay.
Awesome.
Take it away.
Thank you. Thanks. We just need the next slide,
Oh,
please.
you need this next slide. I'm sorry.
I
That's
do. You're the controller.
That's right. Forgot about that. So let's get back to here and let's go to this.
Oh, we still don't see it.
You don't see it?
Nope. That's okay.
Look at it.
So while Jim is
trying
to get it up, there we go. So while Jim is trying to, while he was trying to get it up, and what I was going to say was, for a little interaction, if y'all can drop in the chat just a me or a yes, who has had a challenge with an implementation in their work lifetime? Allison with the hands up, yes. So if you have, I'm sure you know it's not fun, right? Any type of challenge when you're trying to implement something new and learn the system at the same time it can be extremely frustrating. But what we found with traditional software implementations, that the struggles or the challenges are, one is cost being overrun. You're told it's going to be one thing, one price, and then very quickly it adds up to something else, right? It's kind of like building a house, right? They tell you it's going to be the one cost, and then something always comes up when you build a house, and your closing cost ends up being higher than what you initially were quoted. Integration challenges. So, integrating a new software to existing softwares that you are keeping can be time consuming and costly. And then extended implementations. If you're told one thing, let's say you're told it's going to be 30 days and it ends up being 90. Well, that in itself is an expense because you're paying for more time. So Jim, if you can switch over to the next slide. In combating the never-ending cost of a traditional software implementation, combined with Sage Intacct, Express Info has come up with a fixed fee approach for nonprofits, which is a huge benefit to the industry because we realize that funds are limited, right? Time is limited. And not only do you not have to have an endless supply of funds and time, but time is money. So with the fixed fee approach, we've been able to offer our nonprofit customers a predictable budget, a clear scope and timeline of how long the project will take, which in turn leads to a faster implementation and getting you guys up and running and really understanding and utilizing the software to its fullest. Next. This kind of speaks to the same thing, right? Within the fixed fee model, you'll have a predictable budget. So you'll know exactly how much software costs. You'll know exactly how much your implementation costs. Jim is extremely, extremely thorough and will provide a clear scope and timeline of how long the project will take. Like I mentioned, transparent pricing. And then faster time to value. We want to get you up and running as quickly as possible. So that way you guys can continue on your mission within the organization and not be bogged down with a never-ending implementation. Next. A little bit about Express Info as a Sage Intacct partner. So we are headquartered here in the South, San Antonio, Texas. We've been in business for 36 plus years with a deep knowledge of nonprofit organizations all across the country. So just because we're, in San Antonio, Texas, doesn't mean that we can't work with you in California and Washington and New York, Canada, across the globe, you name it, we can help. Our consultants have implemented over 500 software solutions. They're experts in Sage Intacct implementations, specifically speaking to Jim, who's done many in his time with Express. Our average employee tenure is about 15 plus years. Many of our consultants have been here a lot longer than that, so that speaks volume to Express as a company. And we have over 300 plus clients. So if you guys are looking for a home or thinking about switching to a different ERP solution, I would highly encourage you guys to come to us, ask more questions, let us walk you through a full process with us with Sage Intacct. We would love to help you all.
One note on that is, as much as I appreciate the kudos, I'm not a one-man show. We do have a fairly deep bench of Sage Intacct experts.
That is true. I think, and there they are. Good lead-in, Jim.
Great lead-in. So this is our team here at Express Info, right? You can see that we've got a great variety of sales side and our client advisors and our consultants. So I think the benefit to Express is that when you call for help, you get one of us. You don't get an 800 number. You call our 210 phone number and you get an actual person on the phone.
And our goal is a 4-hour response time. So with a lot of other vendors where you're buying direct, it might be a day or two before they prioritize getting back to you.
So Edwards Aquifer has been a customer of ours for many, many years. However, just to give you a quick recap, Edwards Aquifer Authority, they had multiple challenges with manual processes in Excel. Their current system wasn't scalable. They had time-consuming procure-to-pay workflows, and they had complex reporting issues that they couldn't get real-time visibility into. So with Sage Intacct, we were able to alleviate all of those challenges. A 3-month implementation time frame. We had them up and running in 90 days. We were saving the equivalent of 1 part-time employee. We decreased procure-to-payment process by 50% with automating workflows. And we improved financial transparency with dimension-based reporting. And then lastly, we were able to shave off 5 days of the monthly closing costs with, again, streamlined automated reporting processes. Here is the success story from Shelly Hendricks at Edwards Aquifer. So I'll give you all a minute to read that. But essentially, she just says, we've been able to shift our tactical side of the business of bookkeeping to strategic thinking and planning ahead for the future. And then the customer service of Express Info has made the transition less daunting. So if anybody has any questions, concerns, comments, want to follow up and schedule another conversation with us, my information is here. Raina Camargo is our client advisor. However, she's happy to take calls as well. You also have Stacey Campbell's information. And then you guys just let us know if you need anything. But we appreciate y'all joining the webinar today, and we hope you learned something new.
Absolutely. Thank you both, Amanda and Jim. That was fantastic, Jim. Great demo, wonderful explanation. Amanda, same for you. And we will be sending out the recording to all of you. So if you have other coworkers that you want to share the recording with, that would be great. So I should be able to have that to you, if not later today, tomorrow. And we just really appreciate your time and giving us your time. We know schedules are tight and busy. And we are so thankful that you were able to join us today to learn a little bit more about Express, Sage Intacct, and how we look at this fixed fee implementation. So hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day. Thank you again for joining us, and have a good one.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Allison. Bye, y'all. Thanks, Danny.